I'd like to talk about love today and what is love. I teach a class and we have this discussion about love. What is love? And some people say you can't define it. Others say, well, it's a feeling but it really is definable, and it's definable to certain actions, and it's definable to certain attitudes and thoughts. So the definition I like to use is that love is an awareness, a celebration, and nurturance of a person's uniqueness, their individuality. Um, I remember years ago for Shabbos, we had some guests over, and he was interested in marrying a specific woman he talked about, and we knew this woman, and she was quite an intellectual and interested in a very specific type of work, which would have not allowed her to be home a lot because of the helping profession she wants to go into. And he was talking about their possible marriage, and he was saying, yeah, and I want her to be a housewife, and I want to take care of her at home, and I said, wait a second, are we talking about the same woman? Right? Because you're gonna love her, but she's gonna be miserable because that's not who she is. You have to love her as she is, not who you want her to be. You want her to be a homemaker, but she's not going to be a homemaker. She'll be miserable, right? And so thank God he saw that, and then they had the discussion. That marriage didn't happen. It would have been a disaster because we don't want to be loved for who somebody wants us to be, or feeling that we're incomplete for that person. We want to be loved as we are. It's not to say that we can't change. Of course we can change. And that actually brings me to the next point. There's a really beautiful book, and it's a book on addictions by the organization Overeaters Anonymous. And it's called The 12 Steps and 12 Traditions of Overeaters Anonymous. And in step 7, which has to do with part of the 12 steps, there's a very beautiful quote that I will read to you. And we're going to use that in our discussion of love. And it's really talking about humility, but we'll change it around in a moment. It says, humility is simply an awareness of who we really are today and a willingness to become all that we can be. Genuine humility brings an end to feelings of inadequacy, the self-absorption, and status-seeking. Humility, as we encounter it in the program, places us neither above nor below other people on some imagined ladder of worth. It places us exactly where we belong, on equal footing with our fellow human beings, and in harmony with God. A really beautiful quote. Also, this is really interesting. It says humility puts an end to feelings of inadequacy, self-absorption, and status seeking. Right? So what it's really saying is that low self-esteem and arrogance are really the same sides of a coin, the different sides of a coin. They're both about self-absorption. I'm great or I'm terrible, but they're still thinking about me all the time. Right? When you're thinking about me all the time, it's very hard to love other people, including yourself. Right? So I want to talk about humility a little longer in the context of the Bible, the Torah. And in the Torah, there is a section where Miriam, his sister, speaks gossip about him. And God says to Miriam, you don't realize who you're talking about. Moses is the most humble of all people. Right? And the Midrash, which is the oral law that comes along with the Torah, for example, the Torah says to keep kosher. It really doesn't tell you how to keep kosher. That's the oral law, which explains what that means. Right? So the oral law has midrash, and midrashim are like stories that come along, and sometimes they're true, and sometimes they're fictional, and they're made up to teach us about life. So there's a midrash which says that Moses was most humble. How do we know it? What did he say to be humble? Moses would say to himself, if Sarah had been given my job, she would have done a far better job. If Chaim had been given my job, he would have been an amazing leader. But the problem with that midrash, or that explanation, is that it's still about comparing. And if you're comparing, isn't it possible that there is one person who's, you can't compare to because he's the best? And maybe Moses was the best. So I don't think that's what the midrash is saying. I think it's saying something different. Moses, beyond being the most humble person, also was the one who most connected to God and godliness. And so he would look at people, and he would look at Sarah, or he'd look at Chaim, and he would say, beautiful person. Look at all the beautiful things about this person. And then we said, if he had taken or she had taken these qualities and been a leader, they would have done it their way. It would have been also really wonderful. So he wasn't comparing on this ladder of worth, which this text is talking about. He was just comparing. He wasn't comparing. He was just looking at the beauty of an individual. Not better or worse. Just do it his way. Just do it their way. And there's an interesting story also with Moses. Further on this point, Korach is actually related to Moses, who becomes jealous in the Bible. And Korach instigates a rebellion, and he's trying to usurp Moses' position and actually create a lot of problems for the Jewish people. And it says in the Torah that Moses actually approaches Korach and the people who are joining his rebellion, and he begs them. He says, "Please, let's talk. Let's figure out a way to deal with this, right?" And because he still loves Korach, he's not willing to give up on this person. And it's only to the point where he realizes that the rebellion is about to endanger all the Jewish people, the whole mission of the Jewish people, that he says, "Okay, we have to draw a line." And then he says to God, if I have done anything wrong, then and eventually Korach and his followers are destroyed. But that's the last part. Moses loved them, right? He was not interested in positions and strength and politics. So really what it's saying, that midrash, that story of the Torah, is saying that we have to love as Moses did also. We have to love with that recognition of the beauty of each individual, not who we want them to be. There's a verse in the Torah which says, "V'ahavta re'echa kamocha." In the Bible, it says, "Love your neighbor as yourself." One of my teachers, Rav Berkowitz, explains that loving your neighbor as yourself also means that the way you judge yourself, you're supposed to also judge other people, which is another added way to create love in your life. So I'd like to look back at this verse again, this paragraph from the 12 and 12. And we're going to instead of read humility, we're now going to read love. And we'll see how beautifully it fits into this understanding of love. Love is simply an awareness of who we really are today and a willingness to become all that we can be. Again, we don't have to change to be loved or love. Genuine love brings an end to feelings of inadequacy, self-absorption, and status seeking. Humility, or love, places us neither above nor below some people on some imagined ladder of worth. It places us exactly where we belong, on equal footing with our fellow human beings in the harmony of God. Because there's no need to play the game anymore. There's no need to play the game of comparison. We just love ourselves who we are. It doesn't mean that we don't want to grow. Of course we want to be all that we can be. But we don't have to be there at this moment to be loved. So I hope you all have a great day.